All right, everybody. It looks like we are once again live. Welcome to another episode of Yankees, America, Guns, and Freedom Chat. Today, we are going to be joined by a special guest, Mr. Brian Rogers from BIOFIRE. A lot of you might be familiar with BIOFIRE. It is one of the new smart guns that is coming out onto the market, or actually, it's probably pretty much the smart gun coming out right now that looks like it's got any potential. I know that these types of things are often met with a lot of resistance from the gun community whenever you try to do anything innovative. I think a lot of people are sometimes short-sighted and small-minded when it comes to the benefits of future technologies. So I have invited Brian on here to kind of answer any questions you all might have about the product, maybe help quell your misgivings or anything like that. If you've got any questions or comments for me or Brian, just put them in the live chat as usual. Make sure to put at the Yankee Marshal at the beginning of them so I can see them. If you definitely want to get in first on a question, you can always do super chats. You can do super chats if you just want to donate to the Pets and Vets program also. But we'll get things rolling here with questions. We'll let Brian introduce himself, tell you what he does at BIOFIRE, and then we will start with any incoming questions we have going here.
Yeah, well, thanks, Yankee. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Pretty cool. And so I've been, my title at BIOFIRE is lead designer. So I've been responsible for a lot of the early research that we did, a lot of conversations with gun owners and kind of the initial spec of, as a gun owner, what we thought the best implementation of a smart gun would be, through building all the concepts that we did along the way to ultimately the design that's available for pre-order right now.
Now, when you were designing this and you were doing your research, what do you think was like the most common misgiving people had about a smart gun?
Most common misgiving, I think, kind of start when we started the company, there already were some examples, like you mentioned before, that didn't go super well. The Armatics or Armatics, however you want to say it, was the big one that got a lot of the negative publicity. And so kind of rightfully so, people were questioning the technology. So I think when you're doing something so different, people were just concerned initially that like the reliability had to be there. There's an architecture out there that's all mechanical. People have been doing it for 100 years. Why change it? So that was kind of the initial skepticism. If we got any from gun owners, it was that. But when we started the project, like one of the first things I do as a designer is I sit with people and I ask, all right, describe to me your current scenario, and then describe to me what the ideal scenario would be. And when we would talk to gun owners, right away, one of the things that came up right away is like, well, I want to be able to store my gun wherever I want to, safely, but be able to quickly get to it in an emergency and not have to worry about anybody else who gets access to it. So like, at that point, they're kind of describing to me a scenario that a smart gun would fix. And then from there, it's just building something that's as safe and reliable as a lot of other systems that we have in our life that are electronic.
Yeah, that was one of the things I saw a lot from people when I did my video. And I've had conversations with people before, and I say, okay, if you've got a small kid in the house, how do you store your gun? Well, I just keep it in a little handgun safe on the table next to the coffee table or next to the sofa. And I'm like, okay, if someone kicks in your door, what do? Well, I go over and get it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, okay, even now you're having to go get it. That's one thing. But what do you do when you get to the safe? Does it open automatically? Well, no, I have a biometric safe so it'll open quickly. I don't even have to type a safe. So I'm like, you're trusting that biometric safe that you have to go over to get your gun if someone kicks your door in, but you don't trust biometrics on your gun. You're still relying on biometrics to get to your gun, and you're taking longer to do it with it separate from the technology. So I always found that a lot of people's arguments weren't really making a lot of logical sense. When you took, maybe if you took A or B or C alone, they kind of made sense, but when you put them in order, they didn't make any sense anymore when you put them in relationship to one another. So I never really understood that. And plus, like I said, this technology is great for if you have kids. If you're going to have to lock your gun up because you got kids around, this is better. Leaving it on the coffee table where you can just grab it and the biometrics work. Facial recognition, fingerprint recognition. Hopefully, maybe someday they'll read our DNA through our grips. I don't know. But I think that's just a much better way to go. And a lot of people I know also have a concern that there are some states that have laws that say, hey, once one gun does it, they all got to do it. What are your all's, how you address those kind of questions?
Yeah, so I mean that's a good question, and we get that question a lot. And I'll say that like we are a company of gun owners. I was a gun owner before I worked at BioFire. Kai, who's the founder, was as well, and we're big supporters of the Second Amendment. And we see this as a great solution for people that have this problem, or they're worried about who has access to their firearms. But in no way should it be mandated for all gun owners. In any place where this has tried to been enacted before, it's failed miserably, and if anything, it's backfired any innovation in the space. So like the one that you hear about a lot is the New Jersey mandate, and all that did was completely stifle any kind of innovation in the space and just made anybody that was making guns want to stay away from it. And really, for us, we didn't make any meaningful progress on our design until that law was repealed. So our stance is we're completely against it. Actually, there's some really good stuff that Kai's put out about it. If you Google BioFire mandates, you'll see a little bit more about that. But yeah, we are not participating in any kind of mandate that exists or ever would exist.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that has been repealed in New Jersey. A lot of people still think that's the law of the land. And even if it was, I'm still a firm believer that you do not allow the naysayers to dictate progress. So if someone is saying out there something like, oh, if you all design guns that only work for the person who holds it, if one gun does it, they all got to do it. You don't not progress the medium. You attack the people that are trying to force it on everything, and you get those things overturned. You don't stifle progress because of, like I said, naysayers poisoning the market. To me, that's just bowing down to them.
Because, yeah, I mean, I think if anything, what we've done is combine a lot of things that people already use. Like we like safes. We like locks, but there's problems with them. There are extra steps you have to do. It's maybe seconds you don't have in an emergency. Like essentially what we've done with the smart gun, and I have one here that I can demo and show to everybody. But this is all of that in one. This is a gun that only you can use. It's just as safe and reliable as as leaving it in a safe. But the advantages to this are pretty clear. If somebody is trying to hurt you and your family, you can get to this so much faster than going to any kind of safe or trigger lock or anything like that.
Would you hold that up to the camera there so people can get a good view of it? Because I'm sure a lot of people do want to see it. I love the looks of it. I think it looks very cool. I think it looks very Blade Runner, Space 1999 kind of sci-fi looking. A lot of people don't agree with me on my taste in guns, but I think that gun looks very cool, to be honest. And that's not even taking into account the fact
we appreciate it. We did a lot of research on what the. Oh, sorry, I cut out for a second.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying we did a lot of research on what it was going to look like. We knew pretty early on from like when we looked at the requirements set and what it was going to take to build everything that everybody wanted, that it was going to look a little bit different from just the form factor size from what other guns look like now. And rather than try to make it look like Glock or SIG or anything out there, that's kind of the style of the guns right now. We decided to just kind of lean in on the future and really do a lot of research on what does the future look like. It's just kind of like two camps you can kind of be in with that. Like there's a dystopian version of the future, where things just continue to get worse and devolve. And then there's like the clean, like sci-fi version of the future, Star Trek, like where it's like we fix a lot of our problems in society and we cure cancer and we get better. And like, that's kind of the side that we wanted to lean in. Like, this is still a very serious product. We want it to look like a serious firearm, but at the same time, kind of lean into that version of the future that, we all want to be a part of.
So in other words, it doesn't look like an old SKS with stuff held to it with rags and everything else, like a lot of the dystopian guns.
Right. Yeah. Maybe not the District 9 or Elysium kind of version. It's more the Star Trek.
Looks like somebody built something out of junk. I wanted to address a question came in from someone out there said, never buy a biometric safe. They're unreliable. Talk about working on outdated technology. Biometrics on phones nowadays are some of the most reliable technology you can buy. Now, if you go out and you buy a cheap biometric safe, well, then yeah, you'll probably have trouble. If you bought like a $59 biometric safe, but if you buy one of decent quality, you'll never have a problem with it. I got biometric safes, never had a problem with any of them. They act instantly. They're quicker than regular safes. It never fails to surprise me how many people, especially in the gun community, are so afraid of advancements and so afraid of anything that they don't use. Just because you don't use it doesn't. That's like saying you should stick to landlines because cell phones sometimes drop signals. It's ridiculous arguments that people come up with. We got a super chat coming in here from Pigar, who said, does the 3D facial recognition work in the dark?
Yeah, great question, Pigar. So yeah, it's an infrared camera, and there's like several components to it. So I do want to show it that it's clear. So I'm gonna kind of move it around a little bit. But here on the back of the gun, there's 3 components of the facial recognition. So there's a camera, there's an IR flood illuminator, and then there's a dot projector. And the parts that you're talking about are the IR camera and the flood illuminator. So yes, it does work in the dark.
Yes, well, that's a yes to that. Another question a lot of people kept saying, and this is something that people say every time anything is electronic, and I think it's mainly because they watch too many TV shows where somebody with a computer hacks into somebody's car and makes it drive off a cliff. They think that everything can be hacked if it's electric. Please explain to them why that is not the case with this gun. It cannot be hacked.
It's a great question. We do get it a lot, and it's very valid for a concern that people have. And
I think so, but
when I started talking with people, years ago, that was one of the first things people asked. They're like, I don't want the government to know where my gun is. So no GPS or anything like that, and like no wireless connectivity, so like information could be recovered remotely. And so that was a decision we made pretty early on, that we weren't going to have any kind of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth connectivity at all. The way the biometrics are stored, it's like I'm not an electrical engineer, so I can't go too deep into the software and how that works, but it's all hashed in a way that's not recoverable in any kind of meaningful way. Like there's no pictures that somebody could pull off. And it's all an air gapped system. So like we couldn't even get that data off even if we wanted to. So no, your data is stored locally on the gun. The only interface that can talk to it is the dock, which is like a touchscreen interface. It's like kind of your control center for the gun that comes with the gun. That can be connected to the internet if you want. That's for like software updates or new features that come out. You can choose to upload those to the gun if you want, but even that's not required at all. So no.
Squatch 100 here says, even if you're not comfortable carrying it as a primary gun, what a great option for home defense. I think that's where it shines right now. The 2 places I said that it shines, and I know you all have a more intricate opinion of some of the things I'm saying, but I think, households with children or people that come and go that you don't want access to your firearm. And I think eventually law enforcement is a huge thing for this gun, because imagine if, a perp gets your gun, he can't use it against you. That was something that was drilled into our heads when I went through police. It was never, ever let anyone take control of your firearm. Right. And this kind of negates that. They can stand there and pull the trigger all they want at you while you grab your backup gun and blow them away, because it's not going to work for them. Now, right now, you all are dealing with lots of things like, serialized systems, blah, 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 that a lot of police departments like. But I think that's kind of a holdover of an outdated idea of what firearms need to be. And I think eventually it can be changed to where a system like this could be very useful in law enforcement. So I see a potential military law enforcement application for this type of technology also, especially law enforcement. And so right now it might be just for keeping the 2-year-olds hands off of it or making it safe for a 2-year-old on a coffee table. But I think it has great potential, which is why I do not let haters try to dictate what the market does. Because I said that's bowing down to them. That's letting them win, because they don't want things like this. Because one of the big arguments they love to use is, oh, bad guys get a hold of a good guy's gun and use that in a crime. Oh, a little kid gets hold of a good guy's gun, kills themselves or someone else. That's one of the things that's just inherent in gun ownership. That's one of the reasons why we don't want people to have guns. We want to have more control over what they do with them. If you take those 2 arguments away from them, you've taken away a lot of their arsenal on why they say guns are dangerous. So a lot of these laws are simply there's not really, these laws aren't in place anymore, but when they were in place, they were there to stifle technology because they didn't want those arguments taken away.
Yeah, for sure. And I say like we touched on a lot of great points there. I think on the takeaway prevention side, like that's not just limited to law enforcement. A lot of people that we've talked about as for customers in the home are concerned about that. I think everybody understands that you're in the moment that you've never been in before, where you're potentially having to defend your life against somebody, and like how quickly you react an average adult human can cover. I think it's 10 feet per second. Like if they get that gun from you, you want to make sure that it can't be used against you. So that was a big part why we did the active grip system the way that we did, where if the gun leaves your hand for any reason at all, it's instantaneously relocked. And then on the fire control side, going the active electronic fire control like we have, a lot of that is to help prevent if the gun is stolen. There's no piece you can break off of this gun and turn it back into a regular gun. Like this gun will only fire if you are an owner or an authorized user of it.
So yeah, I think the gun has a lot of potential. Let me see if I can see any questions coming in here. If anybody's got any. Screwed sent a super chat in here and says, just got here. Hope you haven't answered this already. What calibers are planned for it? Save the 40s and all hail the 10 millimeter.
Oh, that's a great question. I'll say, like, once we started kind of showing off the footprint of this gun, a lot of people compared it to Fallout, and then immediately asked us if we were going to do 10 millimeter guns. So, it's definitely something we're looking at for the future. One of the reasons we looked at 9 millimeter first for this platform is most popular caliber in America. The ammo used to be cheap. It's getting better now, I guess, from what it was for the last few years. But it's also very approachable for new shooters. So that's why we went 9 millimeter first. Definitely looking at other things for the future. We wanted to get this platform right, get all the reliability dialed in, all the features set the way everybody needs it, and then we'll look at scaling from there.
And a good thing about starting off with 9 millimeter is if there is a flaw in the system and someone actually does manage to fire it who's unauthorized, chances of them hurting somebody is pretty slim. So that's a good thing. Because I have a little campaign called Save the 40s where we're trying to make 40 caliber the standard caliber in this country, not that European tea drinking surrender monkey round that's forced on us by NATO, the 9 millimeter. So I would love to eventually see it in 40 caliber. If it can't be 357 mag, it should at least be 40.
40 is a good caliber. 40 is a good
a nominal snowman, you can feel free to ignore this question because he's not quite right. Will it come in 45 gap? Never enough ammo once won.
As far as what caliber we do next, it's still probably a little too early to decide on that. I know 40 is a pretty popular one for its stopping power, so that's one we would look hard at. We do have to kind of look at like where the trends are going. I know 10 millimeter was kind of up and coming there for a while, so we'll definitely look at other things for the future.
Yeah, but not 45 gap, I'm sure.
There's some pretty bougie calibers out there for
I
sure.
don't even think Glock does anything in 45 gap anymore. Let me see if I can see any other questions here coming in from anybody. Here's one that you might want to answer. Will there be any sight/laser options eventually? And I'm sure there's part of that question there you definitely want to answer.
Yeah. So one of the things we looked at, I mean, if you look at the gun, like you can kind of see a lot of the space that we used for all of the processing boards and battery takes up where you typically find a Picatinny rail on a gun. So one of the things that we did is we included a laser with every gun. So that's over here. And I actually have it set up right now where if the gun unlocks for me, it automatically turns the laser on. So the laser comes on automatically. And so that's a good like secondary indicator for me where if I see that dot, I know I'm ready to shoot. So everybody gets a laser, whether or not you want to use it. You can also disable the laser. Some people are like, I'd rather use a red dot, I'd rather not use a laser. And then the long-term plans are for us to do optics mounts. So basically there's a part, you can kind of see like our slide here moves independent of this front part, which is the flyover cover. This is a polymer piece that's user removable. And so we will offer a version of this that's optics compatible. That's something we've gotten a lot of feedback on, and like definitely like one of the things we've done recently is reach back out to our owners. People have purchased their gun and just try to get feedback on things we could be doing better. And that's something people have asked us about a lot is optics compatibility, and then also weapon light. That's something else that we are looking at for the future. So we'll say we've heard you, and we're going to look at bringing that for future accessories.
What I think would be really cool is since that back piece does have that removable polymer section, it would be nice if you all could somehow market a custom made piece that replaces that is also the red dot itself, like it's made for the gun. That would be kind of nice because it'd just be basically the housing of the red dot would have to be somehow merged to that polymer cover. So it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard of a technology to do that. So And plus it'd be nice and clean and still kind of sci-fi looking and very nice. Let me see here. Let me see if I can see any other questions. Can it be dropped from shoulder height onto concrete multiple times and still work? Why would you want to drop your guns on concrete is what I would say to that. But what do you got to say to that?
Oh yeah, so I mean, our testing program on this is pretty rigorous, and like it's designed for home defense. So I'll say like it's not going to go through all the crazy rigmarole that like maybe like a full military requisition program would go through. But any scenario you would find yourself in the home, we're concerned about, and dropping's a legitimate one. I think like being dropped off a shelf, it's something like that. So we have done drop testing quite a bit. I'll say that the validation verification process of this is probably more rigorous than you'll typically find on a handgun, just given all the other things that are in it too. So like our testing team, they all come from like an aerospace defense type background. And so it's going to go through, like nothing's going to leave our building until it's been validated and verified against a pretty stringent list of requirements, drop testing being one of them.
Super King Bender here just said, just curious if your company has been approached by law enforcement or governmental agencies to install a kill switch or other remote disabling.
I'm not sure I understand.
No. No, we've not had anything like that happen. Not that I'm aware of, and not that I would support or it, basically, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is there anything else coming? Yeah, that would kind of be, you would kind of kill your market if you did that.
Yeah.
Who would buy the gun? So why would anyone think anybody who would make a gun would actually do that?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we've started with what would we want out of a home defense firearm? We certainly wouldn't want that. And so, I mean, like, but that kind of making that decision very early on in the architecture of like, it's an air gap system. It doesn't have any connectivity on it. There's no really ability to do that.
Someone's asking, does it feel chunky? Now that's a real subjective question there, but
it's a great question though. So, I mean, it's definitely like a larger profile than you'll see. Like I'd say kind of our profile is like a 1911 plus a flashlight, but it is a little bit wider. But the ergonomics of the grip are super important. We wanted this gun to be compatible for as many different hand sizes as possible. And given that the fingerprint sensor is built into it, the gun, it has to be sized so that your finger goes right to that sensor. So I'll kind of demonstrate it here that, when I pick up the gun just like normal, like my finger goes right to it. And so one of the things that we do before the gun ships to you, we're going to find out what your hand size is and then recommend a grip size. And there's also a back strap that kind of pops in here. And basically that does a couple things for us. That walks back your trigger finger and walks back where your middle finger lands on the sensor. So by walking back that beaver tail area, it's pretty much a linear relationship for changing those finger lengths. And so sizing the gun to your hand is a very important step. It's something that we'll do as part of the process. But basically, it's designed to fit everyone from the 10th percentile of female up to 100th percentile of male. Going bigger is always easier, obviously, but we can go as small as 10th percentile female.
Pigar once again chimed in here and says, how long is the battery charge and how long does it take to recharge?
It's a great question. Yeah, so there's a couple different states that the gun is in at different times for when you're using it. So right now I've got it off the charger. For most people, like when they're leaving it for the night, they're going to keep it on the chargers. The feedback we've heard, just like we do with our phones and things like that, so that when you do grab it, it's at 100%. But let's say you don't do that for whatever reason, or your power goes out, or you're on a camping trip or whatever. We designed the platform so that you get multiple months on a battery charge. Basically what the gun does is it goes into a low power mode. So right now, while I'm not interacting with it, all the lights on the gun are off, all the biometric systems are off, and it's looking for me to interact with it. And as soon as I grab the gun, those sensors on the grip wake it up. And then from that point, the parts that use a lot of power, predominantly like the camera and the fingerprint sensor, things like that, that's when they're awake and looking for me. So basically trying to conserve as much of the like high power consumption modes as possible. That's what we do. How long does it take to recharge? Yeah, so I mean it's I would say it's very similar to what you'll find on cell phones.
Now, to people out there that are saying it in the chat, I know I'm going to have to make this private or unlisted and link it. I'm going to upload the first half hour here that we're doing this as its own video, and then I'll probably switch to another chat to continue on the rest of this chat, because we would have to make this private because we've shown a gun and can't show guns on live chats. But I knew that to begin with. Believe me, I will be dealing with it. But one thing that I was going to ask real quick, this is a question from me. Any chances of ever getting a speaker on it so that when we grab it, it can go something like, "Ooh, yeah," or whatever, when it activates, so it's activated?
We haven't heard that one before. I have heard the one that wondering if they could sync it to your music, so you can have different.
Or make it sound like a lightsaber when it activates, just or something like that. Just a sound to verify that it's also working. Plus, you could program to say all kinds of cool things if it had that. Squatch 100 chimed in here and says, "Is it aggressively stippled or checkered for a positive grip with sweat and grime? Can't understand when weapons aren't."
That's a good question. That's definitely something that we're still iterating on a little bit before the final ones are done. But one of the things we're looking at there is maybe offering some different options for that. So it will have, you can kind of see here on, actually, should I not show it anymore since
No, you can continue to show it. I'm going to cut the first half of this video and make it a private video.
Yeah, you can kind of see there's some pretty aggressive texture here on the back. But we're also looking at some other patterns as well that people could potentially pick from whenever they configure the gun.
Let me see if I got any other questions coming in here that I can find. How about field stripping and cleaning?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we get that a lot, given that has all the electronics in it. People are concerned, like, if I put CLP on that, is that going to short it out, make it not work? So no, the process of field stripping and cleaning this gun is not much different than any other gun. You basically pop out a pin, take off this plastic cover, and then you remove the slide and barrel, and then your normal cleaning procedure that you would do, you can just go ahead and do that. All of the electronics are like down below and potted in a way that they're not accessible from solvent and things like that. So for like the lower parts of the gun where the electronics are housed, like that's not something that users are going to field strip because that would break all the weather sealing. But for like doing your normal mechanical stuff, yeah, you can definitely still do that.
I've got a question here that I think would be something a lot of people would like to know. One, how much is the gun right now? It's new technology, so I know it's not going to be super cheap. And how does one go about getting one?
They are available for pre-sale right now on smartgun.com. The package that we have available right now, it's $14.99, and that comes with the BIOFIRE Smart Gun, the Smart Dock, which is the interface that plugs into it. You control it from, and you get 2 magazines for that. So they are proprietary magazines that we designed. So you get 2 mags, dictated by wherever you live for capacity up to 15, and you also get the dock for that. So $14.99 at smartgun.com. And also it's $149 down. So right now, since it is pre-order, you just have to put down $149 for a deposit.
I might be able to come up with that. I was waiting until I had more money to get on the list. But and once they become available, like, do you just go ahead and automatically bill cards and then they're sent out to FFLs, or do people get a notification and then once they pay the difference, it gets sent out? Do you know if there's a process for that yet?
Yeah, so as it gets closer to ship dates, and right now we are looking at around like Q2 2024 for if you pre-order the gun now, that's how long your wait time would be. And as it gets closer to that time, you'll be notified about. And one of the things, we'll have a mobile app that's going to be available for everybody that pre-orders the gun. That's not quite ready yet, but that will give you information about what FFLs are near you. Help you process kind of your initial paperwork and kind of walk you through the next steps.
We got a question coming in here from Jake Horvath. Says, pleasure to have you on the stream. I guess they're trying to be nice to you because they don't think I have any manners. What is your opinion on 30-06? Also, any plans on allowing suppressor use on it?
I mean, 30-06 is great. I've only shot it a couple times. Pretty cool, but yeah.
But any plans on suppressor attachments or uses for this gun?
That's a question we get a lot. And yes, I mean, like the most obvious thing we could do there is a threaded barrel. I'll say we've gotten that question so much that we are looking at it. I can't make any promises on it yet, but it's definitely something that we've gotten enough interest in that it warrants us taking a deeper look into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a big endeavor to do that. The only time it's any endeavor whatsoever if it might interfere with the reliable function of the gun. But that was usually a long time ago when when gun technology wasn't so great that putting suppressors on some barrels did interfere with the reliability of the guns because of the extra weight, barrel, etc. But that's pretty much a thing of the past. So I think adding a suppressor would not be a difficult thing. It's pretty much just a threaded barrel.
Well, yeah, for us, I mean, our architecture is pretty novel. There's really not another gun that looks like it in terms of how it works. So we would want to do quite a bit of testing with some exemplars to make sure it's not going to affect that before we offer it.
Don't want to be increasing, failure to feed, failure to eject because of the extra weight of a suppressor on the barrel. Let's see. Let me see if I got any last minute questions coming in. Is there anything you could think of you would like to say? If you were promoting this gun to people, which you are because you're part of the company, what is something that we haven't touched on tonight that you think should be something people are aware of?
Well, let's see. I mean, I definitely think that for a home defense firearm, my experience with guns, I remember the first gun I bought was a SIG 229. I was so stoked about it, but I got a gun that I thought would fit all these different roles in my life. I thought I could conceal carry it. I thought I could do target shooting with it, and as I lived with it, I kind of realized that there's a right gun for every use case. And so this is not the gun I'd want to conceal carry. It's pretty big, but I do think this is the gun I'd want to leave out on my nightstand. And I think if you're someone that has small children in the house, anybody that you're worried about potentially having access to a gun, this is a great option for you to look at. So yeah, I mean, I would say take a deeper look at smartgun.com. There's a good explanation of all the technology, how it works. Here
545x39 just came in the chat and did his normal Punva chat, even though he didn't ask a question about the gun, but I'm going to ask one for him because a lot of people have been asking this. One, what's the warranty? Two, how fast are the sensors? How quickly do they unlock the gun? I'm betting it's faster than most people can bring the gun to bear. And there was something else I was going to ask, but you can answer those while I try to remember what it was I was going to ask.
Yeah, so BioFIRE is what we call the warranty program. And you definitely get I think it's 12 months what we're offering on that right now, and there could be additional warranty purchased on top of that. And as far as the speed and reliability, it's about 200 milliseconds from the time that you pick it up to you're ready to fire. And the way the sensors work, so there's I don't know if we've explicitly said this for everybody, but there's two biometric systems, and it's either or. It's whichever one it gets first. So you don't need both fingerprint and face. It's whichever system it picks up first. And so you can see, but I just picked up the gun and turned it around and it's already ready to fire. It's that fast. And so basically because it's fire by wire, it also works the other way when I put it down. The gun will only fire if I'm holding it, I'm a registered user, and the system senses a trigger pull. If all three of those things are true, the gun will shoot. And it will feel very similar than any other gun that you shoot. I'll say one of the things I'm most proud of with this gun is when we have people come out to the range with us and shoot with us, and we're talking about groupings and sights, and people forget all about all of the other stuff that's under the hood there, all the sensors, all the circuit boards, all the actuators. It just shoots like a regular gun.
Teddy Two Gun says, I live at work, so this gun makes a lot of sense. I remember what it was I wanted to say. You touched on how this wouldn't be a gun you'd want to carry, because a lot of people are asking about holster options in the future, possibly even a holster that charges the gun. I don't know why you need that, because these batteries last forever. They're not going to run down like your cell phone in 24 hours because they're not doing as much stuff as a cell phone does. But it is a gun I would actually carry, because I open carry mostly, and I carry a 454 Casull Ruger Alaskan a lot of time, or a Glock 20. So I carry guns that are easily as big already.
How would you say this might be smaller than what you carry now?
Yeah. And that whole feature there is another thing a lot of people bitch about all the time about open carry. What if someone comes up behind you and takes your gun? If someone's behind you in the grocery store and they grab your gun, one, they're overestimating how easy it is to take a gun out of the holster from behind. It's very hard. But two, even if they managed it with this gun, can't shoot you with it because they're not you.
That's right. Yeah, holsters definitely on the docket as well. I don't know if that'll be available at the time that the guns are shipping, but it's definitely something that we're looking at. And I will say we did look at the charging holster. It's a great idea. So we'll see about that too.
One last thing here. I was going to say, what was it I was going to say? One last thing. I can't. Oh, are the batteries replaceable? Someone asked.
Oh yeah, great question. Yes, they are. So it's basically it's a battery pack. As soon as you take the gun down, so basically remove this flyover cover part, The battery's right here, and you can kind of see the parting line there. This just slides out to the front.
Is it an already existing industry type battery, or is it something proprietary?
We're building the batteries, but they're lithium-ion battery technology.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I am going to have to cut this whole part of the chat down and make it its own chat. So is there anything else you think we should know, or is that about it? I don't want to have to keep you any longer than we need to here.
No, I'd say that's pretty much it. I'd say definitely thanks for having us on, and for everybody that's given us questions, and we really appreciate it. The gun has only gotten to where it is because of feedback from the community. So please continue to send them our way, and we read all the comments on the social media. There's a lot of good stuff in there for things we could be doing better in the future. So we love the feedback and appreciate it, and thanks for having us on.
All right. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And like I said to everyone out there, I will be cutting this part down and making it a video, but thanks for coming. And I will hopefully talk to you in the future. And really soon, you should be seeing my name on that list for the gun.
Looking forward to it. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for coming.